Welcome to Weekend One, the fast-paced show that gives you a roundup of the top stories and interviews featured on eNCA over the past 7 days. I'm Abigail Fasahi. Let's get straight into this week's top stories. The woman who allegedly killed her 4 children in the Eastern Cape dies. The latest quarterly crime stats were released this week by Police Minister Cele. The Newsweek started on a somber note. A few weeks ago, we reported on the heartbreaking story of a 32-year-old mother in eNCA who allegedly killed her 4 children with a sledgehammer. News broke on Sunday afternoon that Nomboleko Simayile died at an Eastern Cape hospital after a brief illness. The cause of her death is not yet known. eNCA's Ronald Masinda has the details.
Kubuhlungu tata. Kubuhlungu. Ewe kona bendizixelela namhlanje ndiyaye edolophini ukuba ndiyombona. Ngoku na andikwazanga ukuya edolophini.
The Smiley family was still trying to come to terms with the loss of their 4 grandchildren. But now their grief has been compounded by their own daughter, Nomboleko's death. The father, Mtundezi Smiley, insists her recent behavior was still unusual, even though the family revealed that she suffered from mental illness earlier in her life.
Ndicinga fana ukuba ngela thuba athathe isigqibo sobulala abantwana akekho yena. Ibingumoya nje omdaka lo besubona sisithi sithetha nawo. Akakho. Nalo ndithi ndiyawuthatha phaya ewe ndiyatsho uba ndiyawuthatha yena kodwa emphefumulweni wami ayindinika okokuba ngunomboleko lo.
Her mother Nokhanyisile Simayili says they would have forgiven the 32-year-old, knowing that she loved her children despite confessing to killing them.
Nobe bephilile ebengazophila bom bu-right. Khona besazama thina simamkele ngoba besimamkele kwangoko. Cha ixhala lami ke ngumoya ngaphandle uzomphatha kanjani. Thina besamamkele.
As they prepare to lay Nomboleko to rest, the Simayili family hopes their pain and suffering over the past 2 weeks will soon be a thing of the past. Ronald Masinda, Joburg.
Women and children continue to bear the brunt of violent crimes in the country. This is according to the latest quarterly crime stats, which were released this week by Police Minister Cele. Close to 1,000 women were killed in South Africa in just the last 3 months alone, while close to 600 children have lost their lives since April. eNCA's Mangoba Mqunu compiled this report.
7,004 people were killed by other persons in South Africa in the second quarter of 2022-2023 financial year. This is an increase of 841 more people murdered compared to the same period in 2021.
A bleak picture of the country's war against crime. Under siege, South Africans are far less safer than the same period last year. Violent crimes are on the increase, and police say it's women who are at the receiving end of some of this scourge of violence.
In the 3 months of reporting, a double-digit percentage increase was recorded for murder, attempted murder, and assault GBH against women. Over 13,000 women were victims of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm between July and September 2022. 1,277 women were victims of attempted murder, and 989 women were murdered during this reporting period.
And even more alarming is the violence against children.
Shockingly, in just 6 months, 558 children were killed in South Africa from April to the end of September 2022. Police are investigating attempted murder dockets of 294 children from July to September 2022. 1,895 assault GBH cases with children as victims were opened with the police during this reporting period.
Meanwhile, police are encouraged by improved reporting, noting a record number of assault cases over 85,000, which is the highest number in 5 years. Manqoba Mchunu, Pretoria.
Former President Jacob Zuma has not finished serving his 15-month prison term. That's the decision handed down by the Supreme Court of Appeal this week. The ruling effectively means Zuma should return to the Escort Correctional Center to serve the rest of his sentence. eNCA reporter Moloko Moloto explains.
Acting Justice Tatima Khoka of the Supreme Court of Appeal handed down this judgment in dismissing a joint application by Correctional Services Commissioner and Jacob Zuma, who challenged the High Court ruling that found Arthur Fraser acted unlawfully when he released the former president on medical parole.
This is my judgment, in which other members of the bench concur. The order of the judgment reads as follows. 1. Paragraphs 5 and 6 of the order of the High Court are set aside. 2. Save for the above, the appeal is dismissed with costs. 3. The first and second appellants are ordered to pay the costs of the first, second, and third respondents jointly and severally.
The Pretoria High Court order that's now been set aside had said the time Zuma spent out on medical parole should not be considered for the fulfillment of his 15-month sentence. In paragraph 60 of the judgment, the SCA says such a determination should be made by the National Commissioner of Correctional Services, but only if empowered by law to do so. The appeal court went further to say in granting Zuma's medical parole, Fraser had no authority to overrule the Medical Parole Advisory Board, which made recommendations against Zuma's release. But at least one legal practitioner believes Zuma will not see the inside of a prison again on this matter.
Look, in my view, the horse has bolted. It will just be academic. The matter is now moot. But in as far as the appeal is concerned, it has really reinforced their position that the decision by the High Court in Gauteng was correct in law, in that it declared the decision of Mr. Fraser to be unlawful, irrational, and unconstitutional.
Zuma's freedom is now dependent on the Correctional Services decision. The department has to either validate its October statement that said he was officially out of its correctional system or revoke it if necessary. Mulu Kumulot, Bloemfontein.
Coming up after the break, we feature some of the big interviews and discussion done by our anchors this week. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Abigail Fasahi. The ANC's Electoral Committee head, Kgalema Motlanthe, announced the preferred candidates for the party's top 6 positions this week. This is in the lead-up to the ANC's 55th National Conference that's just weeks away. eNCA anchor Dan Moyane spoke to political analyst Professor William Gumede about his views on the list.
I've just gone through the list of the names of the nominees for the top 6 positions of the ANC. Are there any surprises on this list?
I had actually hoped there would be more fresh blood. I think perhaps the surprises on that list is that there are not many fresh blood, although people like David Masondo, Phoebe Potgieter, who are featuring. And for me, I think most probably the big shock is in that on the Treasurer General position, where Benjamin Chouhaki came out of nowhere to be sitting at the top, and also surprising that Pule Mbabe was nominated for the Treasury position. And then for me also, the other standout is on the General Secretary. The big surprise, and the General Secretary of the party obviously is a really influential position, is at the heart of the party, the engine room of the party. From KZN and Ntuli, I think out of nowhere, not someone with a national presence, but he seems to be the front runner.
Yeah, and I mean, he never even got any role in the provincial executive committee in KwaZulu-Natal when the new provincial executive committee was elected a few months ago. I was surprised that there's only one woman or two women, so to speak, because of Phoebe Potgieter and Nomvula Mokonyane nominated, when there's been calls for a 50-50 split, even at the top six. What do you say to that?
No, for me, this was really the biggest, the moment for women to, to come to the fore in the top leadership of the party. I mean, for how many years now? Since 1994, in the ANC, there's been discussion about bringing in a woman president, or at least a deputy president, or general secretary. This was the moment for women. I think what has happened is because the Women's League has been so divided, they've been unable to mobilize behind a woman leader, because although at the top of the leadership, the position between, or the fight rather, between Pizzi and Ramaphosa for the ANC leader, top leadership, there may be a surprise at a conference. It may be a third option. There's somebody could be nominated from the floor, like Paul Masatile. But this actually, the idea that for the first time there may be a third option, and a potentially credible third option, would have been a really good moment for a woman candidate to become that third option, to become the ANC president. I'm not speaking even about, sort of the lower rank, deputy general secretary and so on. So it really is, it seems, no progress since the ANC came out a couple of years ago on their proposal to have women in the top leaders of the party. So no real progress.
The SACP says this week's ruling by the Constitutional Court to release Chris Hani's killer, Janus Walus, is abhorrent. The party says the tripartite alliance is planning a day of action to express its anger over this decision. Professor J.J. Tabane this week hosted a robust discussion with SACP General Secretary Solima Paila and Gabriel Krauser from the Institute of Race Relations on his show, Power to Truth.
Yesterday's court decisions got a lot of people hot on the collar. Panyaza Lesufi, Premier of Gauteng, saying, "Maihlome," on Twitter this morning. People ask him, against whom are you going to arm yourself? In fact, he asked the SACP must create or establish, come up with a day of action on the day that Walus will be released. Do you agree with him in that stance, or should we take a stance of saying that sometimes the law will favor you, sometimes you don't?
We'll be announcing a joint action program with, as the alliance, and we're inviting all South Africans who want to join this action to express themselves. Firstly, against this decision by the Constitutional Court of our country that protected the rights of a brutal murderer, a fascist, a right-wing element that sought to destabilize this country and basically equated that person to freedom fighters and disregarded our own submissions. In the law, the Chief Justice never even referred to this. It was a bad judgment. Of course, we understand it's the Constitutional Court's decision can be reversed, but we are taking up further legal measures to see what is possible, either to resign the decision and so forth. We are consulting our legal team about that.
But why don't you do that instead of a day of action? I mean, what is that meant to achieve?
No. We're meant to raise our sharp views, our differences of this sickening a judgment by the Chief Justice and or the Constitutional Court. Because having done this, they have literally turned upside down the spirit of this constitution that they are representing. Because the spirit of that constitution was based on reconciliation after our leaders, led by President Mandela, responded to this violent criminal who's been worshipped in Poland.
Gabriel, your view?
So I want to say I think Solly and I disagree about politics, but we agree about one thing. What Janus Walus did and what Clive Derby Smith helped him to do was a hateful and vicious crime.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they killed Chris Hani, which itself is evil and wicked. It's that they did it in order for this country to spill into chaos, in order for there to be a civil war that white right-wingers would win.
Yeah.
It is just about the worst crime conducted by two people.
Why don't you lock them up forever?
That's a good question. I think that's a seriously good question. And that's effectively the question that Minister Ronald Lamola was asking the court. So just by the way, Solly's saying, you know, Clive Derby-Smith was doing things after he was released which show that Janus Walus might have reoffended or might have done it again to communists.
Yeah.
It was Lamola's fault for not making that argument, if that is a good argument. Because Lamola said to the court, Lamola's department, that on every ground, Janus Walus is a commendable prisoner. He called him commendable. He said his behavior is commendable. He said he has been to therapy. The psychologists agree now he's safe. When he goes out, he won't offend again. He's written letters to the family to apologize. They didn't accept the apology. But from his perspective as the minister, this counts as a positive thing. He said the only reason we are keeping him in jail is because we believe the crime was so bad, he must go there and he mustn't come out effectively. But the court said that is inconsistent with our law. Our law in the Correctional Services Act, Section 30 says that the objective of our correctional services centers is to rehabilitate people.
South Africa's crime stats are beyond abnormal. That's the view of University of Limpopo criminology head, Professor Yaku Barkhuizen. He says the country's crime prevention strategy hasn't been updated since the late 1990s, and the latest figures prove a complete failure of policing. He spoke to eNCA anchor Sally Burdett on SA Tonight.
Why are more and more South Africans getting murdered? What's going wrong?
Okay, so first of all, the crime stats is not abnormal. It's beyond abnormal. It's preternaturally wrong. Like you said, murder is increasing now to such an extent that no one basically is safe anymore in South Africa. Why is it increasing? Well, first of all, our crime prevention strategy is old and outdated. The criminal justice system is failing. We see it every day. The police is basically failing. And before the minister says, no, it's not, we have the statistics now. This shows a complete failure in the criminal justice system, and especially in policing.
What do you think they're not doing that they should be doing? Because I want to hear some solutions. I want to hear some concrete things that perhaps we can do, because otherwise we're just swimming in hopelessness.
Okay, first of all, the first thing the police need to do is update their crime prevention strategy. The current one was developed in the end of the 1990s, early 2000s. It's outdated.
Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse faces another vote of no confidence. After surviving another few days as Joburg Mayor, Mpho Phalatse faced a motion of no confidence on Thursday. Minority parties and the ANC want her gone. But in order to do this, they will need the support of the EFF. eNCA reporter Moloko Moloto has been covering this developing story.
Mpho Phalatse was given an early Christmas present. 2 no-confidence motions in her were withdrawn in council on Thursday, giving her the lifeline to hang on to the mayoral chain.
I'm withdrawing the motion. Let us see if all SMMEs will be paid this month. I thank you.
I am today withdrawing this motion with a heavy heart, because you've done nothing in 1 year.
Phalatse says it's business as usual for her, and she's confident the opposition won't be able to remove her even in the near future.
We continue to reach out. Talks are ongoing, even at a national level. Our leaders are talking on an ongoing basis with parties that are even in the opposition bloc to see how we can strengthen and stabilize this coalition. So that commitment remains. We continue to reach out. But in the meantime, we continue to focus on service delivery.
The ANC's Jada Morero says the no-confidence motion in Palatse will be retabled early next year.
Likelihood is that the motion will then be retabled in the new year, early next year, so that we can then continue with what we have planned. In essence, we'll still continue with the motion, except that we have parked it for a bit.
For now, Palatse remains the executive mayor. The question is, will this bring about some stability in Johannesburg? Mulu Kumulot, Johannesburg.
The DA tried to gain access to Kusile Power Station, but was turned away. Party leader John Steenhuisen says prior arrangements had been made with Eskom, but the Public Enterprises Department maintains his visit was unscheduled. eNCA's Heidi Jokos was there and filed this report.
The DA was planning to find out what's really going on at Kusile Power Station. The country has been subjected to the worst rolling blackouts in the past 3 months, and Kusile is one of the problematic plants. But the visit didn't happen after the DA group was met with this. The DA says it did get prior approval for an oversight visit.
Well, we were told that we weren't allowed in because you've got to go through the minister's office to be able to get access to this. The very minister we're trying to hold accountable. I wish the minister was as energized and exercised and efficient at dealing with this crisis as he is in preventing the leader of the official opposition.
Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has dismissed the visit as nothing but grandstanding. He says the visit was unannounced, and if proper arrangements are made, the DA will be allowed in. The DA, however, says it will not back down.
It's a monument to state ineptitude and corruption, and that's what people don't want, certainly from the minister's office, don't want the people of South Africa to see. Well, what we'll do if the minister wants us to jump through his hoops in the midst of a crisis, like Marie Antoinette telling people to eat cake while the revolution is underway, well, we'll do that. I will be back here. And you know what? I'm going to go to every one of these monuments to corruption now. The minister's now really piqued my interest.
All the while, the country remains with the reality of rolling blackouts until further notice. Heidi Jokos, Dalmas, Mpumalanga.
The Constitutional Court heard 3 applications this week in the Public Protector matter. This was in relation to the High Court judgment that declared President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to suspend Busisiwe Mkhwebane invalid. The application seeks to determine whether the country's apex court will affirm the setting aside of the Public Protector suspension. eNCA senior reporter Slindelo Masekane was there.
The Democratic Alliance and the presidency are adamant that Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane should not be allowed to return to her office as public protector. Lawyers for the DA argue there was no bias in the president's decision to suspend her in the first place.
What seems to have happened here, and it's the elephant in the room, is that Phala has caused a massive outcry. And so Phala is somehow regarded as different from the Waterkloof investigation or the judicial capture investigation or the Glencore. That seems to have been the elephant in the room in the High Court. But with respect, that can't be right.
The presidency maintains the process to suspend Mkhwebane began long before the Phala farm scandal.
Because the Phala investigation continued under the leadership of the deputy, then acting, and because the president was required to answer the 31 questions, and because he did answer the 31 questions. So nothing changed as far as the president's position was concerned through the suspension.
Mkhwebane's lawyers believe she's being kept out of office by any means necessary.
Once they lost the case, then they felt, as Mr. Bishop quite candidly admitted on the stand, that we had to do something to make sure that she does not go back to work. Now, that is really the crux of the matter. So something had to be done so that she does not go back to work as ordered by the court. Let's just get that clear.
Mkhwebane says she's eager to go back to work.
I think South Africans, they see for themselves that, unfortunately, I'm this person who's not supposed to be near that office. Yeah.
Because it seems they don't even want you to go back to office.
Definitely, yeah.
All right.
That's what the DA wants.
But has this taken a personal toll on you, perhaps?
Not at all. Not at all, because of the support which I'm receiving. I'm fine. It's just that I wanted to serve South Africans, not at all.
Meanwhile, the inquiry into Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office will resume next week. Slinda Lomasigane, Johannesburg.
And that's it from us at Weekend One. From myself and the team, have a fantastic weekend.